What's going on? So if you clicked on this video, you already know what's going on. We're going to create a sorting visualizer with React, TypeScript, and CSS. This is an awesome project to do. It's really fun and it's really great to show people. You know, it impresses people when they see it, but also it's really good for your resume and it's just a really nice project to do. I ran create React app right now here, if you see this command, and I used the template of TypeScript. So let's go down here. And I'm gonna open Visual Studio Code for this project that I just initialized. So now the first thing that we gotta do is install Tailwind CSS. So I have this window open here, and all I gotta do is copy their commands and install their library. And then go into their Tailwind config file and add this stuff here, just like that, and then add these things to our index.css over here, and now we can use Tailwind. So I'm gonna run yarn start now. I'm gonna close that Tailwind window, and let's just jump right into it. So I'm gonna actually get rid of this app.css file, and I'm gonna clean all of this up here. So here I just want to render one main tag here for now. We can get rid of that, and in our index.tsx get rid of that. Okay, so yeah, now we can just get right into it and get started. So in this in our application, what we're gonna have is basically we're gonna split our main tag into two pieces. So there's gonna be the navbar, and there's going to be the main content where it's going to be like a bunch of array bars that we're going to be sorting, and our users going to be looking at that. But first we need the nav bar, because the nav bar is going to have all the controls for our application and all the input. So I'm actually going to create a component for that. So I'm going to create a folder first called components, and then a component called nav. And then just like that, I'm gonna render it in here. Like that. Oops, okay, like that. So I'm gonna go over here to the nav, and instead of a div, I want to render a nav tag. And we can just go ahead and get started. So I want the nav bar to be the full length of our screen, no matter what. I mean full width, sorry. So I'm gonna put here width of screen. And I want to give it a background of gray 400, just so we have something to look at. So that's maybe 300, because that's a little too dark for me. Okay, that's cool. And so in our nav, the way I want to organize is I want to have some buttons at the top, and I want to have some sliders. So I want to split my navbar into rows. So to do that, we would use grid, and then grid flow row is really useful. It like makes the rows for you. It's pretty cool. And that's all we need to do for the styling of our parent nav tag right here for the moment. So in this nav bar, as I mentioned, we're gonna have two sections: the buttons and the sliders. So I'm gonna create a div here, and inside this div will live all of our buttons. And I want these buttons to be side by side. So the first thing that should come to mind would be flex, to do that just easily. And obviously I want these buttons to be centered. So before we even do anything, I want to make sure that everything's centered. And let's actually create our buttons. Oh, and I also want to make sure that this parent div is its width of 100%. Okay. So I'm gonna go here and render a button, and this button, the first one's gonna be the button to select the merge sort algorithm, and we want to style this because it looks ugly how it is right now. So first of all, I want a border, and that border can have some nice colors to it. So give it a color of teal 100. And then give it a little shadow of medium. See, it's already looking better, but it still needs some padding. So padding Y of 2, padding X of 4. There we go. And I also want to give it a little animation. So transition all, and then when it's active, so when you click on it, I want to give it a scale of 95, just like that. Okay, so see when I click on it, it has a little nice animation. So I'm going to copy that button. And the second one is going to be to select insertion sort. And then I'm going to have a separate button that's styled differently. And this is going to be to actually start the sorting like that. Okay. So on this one, all I want is for it to be underlined like that. And that's pretty much it. So now I want to give some margin so it's not so close to the top of the screen. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do a margin Y, maybe a 4 or 2. So this div also, we want to give some space between the sort button and the buttons to select your algorithm. So I'm gonna go here and do a gap of 4. And that's nice and all, but I don't want a gap between our buttons that have to do with selecting the algorithm. I think it looked better side by side. So what I want to do is simply just wrap our algorithm buttons in their own child div, and now they're one child of this parent. So that's pretty cool, and I could increase this gap to 5. All right, and that's the buttons. So now let's just move on and let's actually implement the sliders. So I want the sliders to be in their own row. So right now, all of this is in one row of our nav. And you can see this if you inspect here. You see this grid. So there's one row right now. I want there to be 2 rows, and the second row will have the sliders. So just like how I made this one child, I'll make the sliders inside of another div, right? And then this div, I'm going to do something similar. So instead of them being side by side, I want them by column. So I can do flex column. I can do item center, and also want to make sure that this parent div is 100% width. So now what I can do is label, I can render an input, a range input. And the first one that we're gonna do, it'll be the items amount. So it'll be the range that controls the amount of items in our visualization. So let's give this a class name. So you see it on the screen. I want to make this a width of full, but also a max width of around 700 pixels or 2XL. There we go. It's a little bit too close to the bottom of the nav, so I want to give this div right here a padding bottom of 3, like that. And so it's going to be essentially the same thing for our other range, except the other range will not be called items amount, it'll be called delay. So the delay in our algorithm will be controlled here. I'm going to stick some labels for these ranges and give it a little bit more of space between each other. So here I want to render a label, and it's for the items amount, and then it'll be I'll just call this array length, and then a default could be 25. And then here we'll specify default is 25. Also min has to be 1 because we don't want this range ever to be 0, because what's the point of a sorting visualizer if you don't visualize anything at all? So that's important. This one right here, the delay, we can give it a minimum of like 3 start off, because we don't want them to be able to put it way too fast, because that's not good. The default value could be 15. So how we're doing this is these are milliseconds in delay, but it's not, 3 milliseconds is way too fast, so we're gonna do 3 times 5. So it would be like every one value here would be equal to 5 milliseconds incremented in our algorithm delay. And then here I would want to render another label, but instead of array length, it will say just delay, and then we'll start this off as a 15, and then make sure that this is for the delay. Okay, so yeah, once I put in these labels, now it looks a little bit better, so I think we're good just like that. So that's our navbar. That's pretty much it, and I think that was pretty fast. So now that we have this navbar, let's add some functionality. So we want to make it so that when we click these buttons, we're actually selecting an algorithm, and then when we change these sliders, we're actually changing data somewhere. We want to store this data so that we can use it in our application. To do that, we should create a context that passes, or a context component that passes data that we can change here, and is basically available throughout our entire application. So I'm just going to create a folder here called utils, and a file here called algo context. And this is where this is where we're gonna render our context and its children. So first we need access to this children, and that's access through the props. So we would want to declare an interface called props that has the children, and this is not an optional field because we need the children for all this to work. We need this to have a child. So the child would be just a React node, like that. And then we want to declare this as type of React functional component, and it has those type of props in there. Okay, so here we would just render children. Okay, so all these settings that we're changing in this navbar, we're actually going to store them in a state, and then we're going to pass that state down through context. So here we want to have settings and set settings, like that. And then this is equal to use state, like that. And then we import use state. So we want to actually give this a type and a default value. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to create a type called settings. So it's going to be an interface called settings. And in here, we essentially want to hold the algorithm type, which for now we just have merge sort or insertion sort in here. And we also want to hold the array length, which is a number, and the delay, which is another number. And then down here in this use state, we can pass in settings. And then we want to give this a default value as well. We're gonna actually create that here. So const init vals of type of settings is equal to this object, and the algo type by default is we're gonna have it as merge sort. The array length at default, I think 25 is what we put it at, and the delay we had it at 15, and these are not strings, they're numbers. And here we can pass the initial values. Okay, so now we actually want to store this down in our context. So we're going to do const settings context is equal to create context, and pass it in the initial values. Okay, but in this context, not only do we want to pass down settings, but we also want to pass down set settings. So what we can do is declare that type here. So type setting, I already have an interface called settings, so maybe I can call this setting context, or algo. My gosh, the hardest part of programming is variable naming, guys. Okay, so this type is going to be basically it's gonna have settings, which is type of interface settings, implements the interface settings. This is gonna have set settings, which is optional, and it's gonna be this type right here, like that. And then down here we can pass in our settings context, and then here it's gonna give us an error because this needs to be an object, like that. And actually we need to do settings init vals, like that. Okay, so now we have this context or state. They both have the same initial values, and you probably can, maybe you can figure out a better way to do this, but that's just what I do. It doesn't really matter that much. So yeah, then down here, since the context receives settings and set settings, we can go down here and render our settings context. And I just noticed that I named the context and the type the same name. So maybe this should just be called context. Yeah, that's not the best name, but whatever. This is just for learning, right? Okay, so we want to pass down settings and set settings, like that. And so now in our entire in our children, they have access to settings and set settings, right? And let me just organize this a little bit more. So this is context is type of this, and this type has settings and set settings, and then settings type is up here, right? And then initial values all the way at the top. Okay, so all right, so now let's go in our app, and maybe in our index actually, and let's wrap our application in that component. I think I named it algo context. Oops. Like that. So you see nothing's really changed, but now we can go in our nav and we can grab these values. So we want to grab settings and set settings from use context. And what did I name it? I just named it context. Okay, so I need to export that so then I can grab that here, like that. And I need to import use context also. So now down here in the array length, we would actually render settings dot array length, like that. And then down here we would render settings dot delay down here. And okay, now we actually have to implement how we're going to change these settings, and I'm going to create a function for that. So for these sliders here, so I'm going to do on change, grab this type right here, like that. I think it's this one right here. Okay, and I'm gonna go up here and do const on delay change, and this is of the type that I just copied in there. And so here I'm gonna put on delay change, and there's no error. And I'm gonna do the same thing down here. So on change, I think is the same type, so I don't really need to copy it. So I can just do that and then change this to on. Oh wait, this is not on delay change. This would be on array change. My bad. And then here, copy that in there. And then this one was on array change. Okay, so I got them mixed up almost. Okay, so these are the functions that get called on the change. So now first let's do the on array change. So on the array change, what we want to do is basically set the length of the arrays to this value right here. But we don't want the length of the arrays to be going from 1 to 100. We want to do more. what we could do is actually multiply every length here by 5. So then everything here would just be times 5, and that's pretty good. So what we can do is we need access to the event. So then we can do set settings, and I'm not sure if I'll get an error, but maybe I need this to be up here. So set settings, we get the previous settings, and we just return all the previous settings, but then array length needs to be set to e.target.value times 5, and this is a string, so we need to convert it to an integer before doing anything. Okay, so this is possibly undefined. So if not set settings, if not set settings, return. Okay, and let's actually do a console log on settings dot array length. So when I go down here, and what's this? Okay, that was a previous error. So when we change this, see, we get these numbers, and the lowest that you can go is 5, and it's showing us 10 because it's just showing us the previous length. But yeah, that was just to test out that it's working. So let's do something similar for the delay change. Here we need access to the event, and so on the delay change, we want to do something very similar. Basically, I can just copy this over, not gonna lie, and then just only change what's in here. So here delay would be equal to e.target.value, and then a plus sign in there. Awesome. So that's pretty much it. So when we change it here, it's working just fine. Now what's left is for us to be able to select the algorithm that we want. So I can just keep this going and do the same thing for the buttons, I think. So let me go here on click, and I want to format that, and I want to grab this type here and make a function of that type like that, and then call this, which one is this? They're both going to be similar, so I can call this on algo change. Yeah, I'll just call it that. So I want to give this an on click of like that, and then we call on algo, not that, and then we want access to the event, and then here we call on algo change, passing the event. But I also want to not only do I want that, but I want to take in the event and the type of algorithm, and then this would be either merge or insertion. So I would need to actually change this function so that I could take in the type of algorithm. And just to make this more organized, I want to, this right here, I want to make this its own type, and this would probably be in a different file. So type of algorithm is either merge sort for now or insertion sort. And then here we can make this a type of algo, and over here, oh, and I forgot to export that. Okay. But yeah, normally you would not have this all in the same file. You would probably put this somewhere else. And then here, this would be type of algo. So I want to make it that both buttons use the same function. And then you just pass in the event and then the type of algorithm that this is for. So this one's for insertion sort. But I have to change this. So let me get this E type. And I just need to get rid of this right here and just declare that like that. Okay. So then all I will need to do is set settings, get the previous settings, return an object, spread those settings, and then the algo type, set to type. There we go. And so now we can use the same function for both of our buttons. So here, pass an insertion sort. And then here we would pass in merge sort like that. Now I'm just going to do console log settings.algo type, and this will show us the previous algorithm type. So when we click insertion sort, it shows us merge sort because that's the default. And when we click merge sort, there, so we can switch between the two, and that's perfect. So now I want to indicate to the user that when they select an algorithm, which they have chosen. So all I have to do is go into this button here and edit some styles. So this top one, all I have to do is first of all make this a template string, and go like that, and then at the end over here, I'm just gonna do if settings.algo type is equal to merge sort. I want to render the styles here. I can probably change this to two and signs. That means that if this is true, just render just return this. So here, if this is the selected algorithm type, then I just want to render text color. I forgot what it is. Text. Okay, yeah. Then we just select the color. So we can do purple 500. And see, the one we selected is purple. So I'm going to do something similar for this class of the insertion sort one, except just if it's insertion sort. So there, and when we have our application, it's selected merge sort by default. And with that, we finished the entire navbar. That's everything for the navbar. We're not going to have to touch this again. So now that we have everything, all the data, we want to start rendering our main application view. So I'm going to create a component called main.tsx like that, and then here we would render that main right there. Okay, so before we get started with our main view, we have this array length, but we need to actually do something with this number. So what we're going to do in this application is that we're going to create these many divs, and they each have a random height so that we could sort them by height in the application, and it will look really cool. So we need to go back to our context, and we need to basically have a place where we're getting the algorithm length, and then we're creating this array of heights, and it has this amount of values inside of it. We need to put this at the top level here because we need to be able to call a sort function, and it needs to have access to the amount of items, and we need to call this function whenever we click on sort. So it needs to be all connected. The nav needs to be connected to the main view, or else it's not going to work. So basically, I'm just going to create another context. So I want to pass down the array of height values, array of random numbers to our children, but I don't want it to be part of the same context because they're going to be accessed at different times for different things. The items array is going to be accessed by our sorting algorithms, and we don't want to mix that up with our actual settings. Those are two completely different things. So I'm just going to do export const items context is equal to create context like that. And then I have to create the type of items context. And we're going to hold here items, and we'll make that type now. and then set items, which is an optional field. And we'll set that now. So the items type, it's basically just going to hold an array of values. So then we would just go here and declare an array of numbers. This would be the set items type. So we can copy this one over, stick it in here, and then change this to an array of numbers. So yeah, and then we would have to pass in this type here. So items context, and then for now, items just is an empty array initially. So now we can go here and create that state. So items set items, it just holds an array of numbers, initialized as an empty array. And then we just render items context. Here, and then make sure we do dot provider. Value is going to be equal to items set items, like that. All right, cool. And okay, so I did the same mistake again. I'll just rename this then to items, like that. All right, that's pretty cool. So now we have this array of items, and we need to actually start creating those random values. So I'm going to do that in a use effect. It's a function, and it's dependent on the settings.array length. So whenever the array length changes, we want to do this again. So essentially what we want to do is create an array of random numbers. So to do that, we're going to create a for loop, and it goes all the way to settings.array length, like that. And then for every value here, we just do randnums.push math.random, and it returns a number between 1 and 0, times that by 540. And there, and this has to be inside of an array, like that. And cool, so now I almost forgot, set items to randnums, and then we can do a console log on items. We check it out over here in our console. Yeah, that looks about right to me. See all those random values, they're decimals, so we need to wrap this in a map.floor function, like that. And let's see, there we go, we got all these random numbers popping up, and that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so now that we have the height values of each div that we're going to make, let's go in our main component here, and let's get access to that. So items is equal to use context, items context, and then this div is going to be a section. Okay, so basically I'm going to make a parent div, and I'll show you why now. And in here I'm going to do items.map, and then I have access to the item and their index, and I need their index because we need to create a unique value every time. So I'm just going to be returning a div from this. And so this div, it will have some styles to it. So first of all, you don't have to worry about the width of the div, because you can just give it a flex of 1. Basically, it'll always be full width, you know. But to do that, you need to make this parent div up here a flex box. So let's do that now. Class name here of flex. And why am I getting an error? There's no closing. Oh, okay. right? So there might be a slight problem here because this parent div needs to be, I want to make it 100% width and height. All right, so now we need to map over our items and basically style the height according to that random value that we have in this array. So for now, I'm thinking, let me give this a background color because actually it's you can't see if it's white, but the thing is that we're gonna actually change the color of this div when we're doing the sorting, so we can't, it's not advisable to use CSS for that. It will be better to just do that in a manually in the style. So here we can give it a background color, and let's do an RGB of a green, and then we want to give it a height, and then here we would have template literal string like that, and then here all we need to do is item divided by 7 and stick a % at the end of there. So essentially we're getting all the heights and dividing them by 7, because if not they will be too tall. They'll be way too tall. And we're using % so that it stays relative to the viewport, so it never gets too big. So it seems to not be working, and that's because there's no unique key to each child. So I'm gonna go here and give each child a unique key, and I'm gonna use a template literal. So obviously the height would be unique for each child, but it would not be unique for, let's say if we change the algorithm type, maybe a number can be repeated, or if we change the number of arrays, maybe one can be repeated. So we want to continue giving this a unique key, and we can do that by getting the array length here. So we can say we want to access the algo context, and we want access to the algorithm. I'm not sure if I named this algo context or, oh no, I had named it just context. Okay. And then the settings. So here we would go to settings dot array length. Then we can add one more value to make this more unique, and this would be the index. Okay, so you see we're not getting any error message, but we're actually not seeing anything here, and that's actually because this section right here has no height and no width to it. So we need to go in our app.tsx and make sure that this main component has a height to it. So here I'm just gonna give this a class name, and we're gonna give it grid and grid rows and 6, and immediately you start seeing the array bars. We can actually further style this, so we can do a background, I think it's BG of gray 100, so it's easier on the eyes. And see this main is not going all the way to the screen, if you see that little difference in color down here. So we want to do width screen and height screen. Perfect. So now in our main component, we can go here in our section, and we can declare that the class name row span 5. So now we can go here and declare items end, just like that, and that's already looking pretty cool. See, we can change the length. We're getting a slight problem though with this overflow thing. Okay, so in order, for the sake of time and the fact that I don't know what's going on, I'm pretty much just gonna hide anything that's overflowing. So this is obviously not an optimal solution, but it works, and for this project it's not that important because you're still going to be able to see it sorting. So one more thing we need to do for this div is give it an ID. This ID is going to be equal to the index of this item in the array. And that's going to let us actually select this div when we're sorting and color it when we're editing the height or doing a swap. Okay, so now the last thing to do is make it so that when we click sort, it calls a function that sorts our array. So I lied, we actually need to go back to the navbar, and we need to do something here. And actually we never even needed access to this event right here. So we could just go like that. So we can just get rid of that input. So what I'm thinking here is that when we call sort, we just call a function that we have access through the settings, and then that function is here and it actually sorts our items from up here. So to do that, I'm just going to go in the settings here, in the settings context, and I'm going to pass a sort function, and it returns void. And here in the initial value, I'll have it basically equal to a dummy function, and make sure I label that. Okay, so then down here in this value, we would pass in the function. So the function is going to be right here, and we just pass it in. This function, it takes in a type, or maybe I should call it something better, algo type. And the algo type is basically a type of algo. And so here I need to actually declare that. So this takes in algo type of algo. Right, this needs to be void here. Okay, I accidentally changed that to an object. So now we have this sort function type declared, and we're passing it down in our context. And for now, we're just gonna console log whatever it passes down. So over here, we can access that, and it's passed in through our settings. So here on the onClick, function, we would want to call sort, but we need to actually get it from here, which I forgot to do. Okay, so we go down here. Oops, what am I doing? We go down here and we call sort. We pass in the settings dot algo type. So now I access the console, and I have merge sort, and I click sort, there it is, and I have insertion sort, it's printing out. So now from here starts the actual algorithm design. So we're actually going to do a switch on the algo type. So in the case that this is insertion sort, we can break. In the case that this is merge sort, we can break, and default we can break. So we're gonna start with insertion sort. I'm gonna make sure that this switch works by doing a console log here. So I select insertion sort, and there, yeah, this function works. So we're gonna implement insertion sort, but it's gonna be a little bit different. So instead of actually just sorting the array, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pass down the array to a function, and that function, what it's gonna return is an array of animations. Not quite animations, but really an array. So it's a matrix, it's a 2D array, and the array contains tuples. And the tuple contains the two divs that were swapped. So that's why we have in our main component, the divs have an ID of their index, because with that index, the index of the two divs that were swapped with each other, we can color them both, adjust the height, and then take off the color, and then it'll be visualized. So we're gonna do insertion sort, but we're not gonna mutate our state. We're just gonna do it and get an array of those animations. Basically, just a list of every div that we touched while we were doing insertion sort. So I'm actually gonna make a function, and I'm gonna make a file for that. I'm gonna make a file called insertion sort, and what this function is gonna be called is export const get insertion sort anims. Like that. And what we need to receive in this function is we're going to need the actual array, so our items. So here we'll have items, and it's going to be a number array. And this function is going to return a 2D array. So now all we're going to do is just implement insertion sort. So I'm just going to do a for loop for let I equals 1, because an array of size 1 is already sorted. So we're going to go to an array of size 2 right away. So I equals 1, I is less than items dot length I plus plus. And actually what I want to do is create an array, because we don't want to mutate our state. So new array is equal to, and then this is the one where we're going to do the in place sort. So here, new array dot length, and make sure there's 3 dots there. Okay, so we're going to do all our mutation on the new array. So, and we're also going to want to create a anim array, and it's going to be an array of arrays, and we're going to push the animations to this array every time we do a swap. So first, let's just implement insertion sort with no animation, and then we're gonna add that after, which is a really simple thing to do. So here we start at index 2, and we do while. So first we let j equals I, because we need 2 pointers. So while j is greater than 0, so we don't go out of the bounds, and j is less than new array j minus 1, and not j but new array j. So while we're at an item that's less than the one before it, we need to do the sort. So then we would just do const temp is equal to new array j minus 1, because we're going to edit that value, so we need to store it temporarily. New array j minus 1 is equal to new array j. Then new array j is equal to temp. And then at the end of the insertion sort, we return new array and the animation array. And for now, we put a dummy value in there. Okay, so now let's just test out insertion sort. So here in this function, we would call get insertion sort anims, and we pass in items. And then const new array and anim array. So we destructure the return values. And for now, we just console log this new array. So let's go here. We have this and sort it. Okay, so it doesn't look sorted at all. Oh, right, because I actually forgot when I do this, I need to keep going. So J minus minus. So let's try again. Okay, this array is sorted now. So we've implemented insertion sort. And all we need to do to make this work with our animation system is down here, we just need to do animArray.push, and we're pushing in an array with the index j-1 and j, because those are the items that we're swapping, and we can just do that up here. And that's all we have to do. So now our animArray is an array of the indexes of every item that we touched doing this animation. It's pretty large because this algorithm is O of n squared, so it's gonna be a long list, but that's okay. So now we need a function that handles this animArray and does the animations. I'm actually going to implement this function in this file. So it's going to be called animate divs, and it takes in an array, which is the animation array, and it also takes in the new array, which is the sorted array. And the reason it needs to take in the sorted array is because we're actually gonna, at the end of the animation, we're gonna do set items to the new array. So that's why we need that. So here, all we would do is animate divs, new array, animArray, like that. And what's this? Okay, so instead of passing returning an array, I'm just gonna return an object. I'm not sure what the problem was there, but I'm not trying to make this video super long. I'm trying to debug dumb stuff like that. Anyways, so we got the new array, the animation array, and we call this function. So now what we do is we actually gonna do array.forEach. And remember, this array is the animation array. In this forEach, remember, it's a 2D array, so we have access to first and second. So this is me destructuring that array. Then we have access to the index. Okay, so here's where we're gonna do everything. So first of all, we need to select the two divs that were basically touched in the insertion sort. So const div is equal to document dot get element by ID, and we can just pass in first here, and then we do the same thing, div2, pass in second there. So if any of these things basically are undefined or null, we can just return straight from here. So I'm actually going to code what I'm doing, and then I'll explain it to you because it's a little bit easier once I have it out in code. So I'm simply going to do a set timeout. And then here, in the time that it's going to take, I'll do out settings.delay times the index that we're at when we're looping times 5, because for each millisecond delay I want to do times 5 because 1 millisecond is way too fast. So in here we'll do div dot style dot background color, and we could set this let me see, let me open up this color picker here, and something purple is cool. So I'm gonna do that for div2 as well. And then const div height, so we want to grab the height of the first element, because we're essentially going to swap the height of both elements. So we're doing the swapping here, and the animation here on the DOM. And then once this is all done, we'll reset the items to the new sorted array. And the client is not going to see when we do that because it's going to look just the same. So we do div.style.height is equal to div2.style.height, and then we do div2.style.height is equal to the first div's height, which we saved here, like that. And so this is going to change their heights and color them, but now we need to take off the color after some time. So we're going to need to set another timeout inside of this one, and it's going to run after settings.speed times 5. We don't need to add the delay. We don't need to add this times index because we already did it in the parent set timeout, and we want the uncolorization, so basically it goes back to green at the same time. So for every div that we change the color, the first change of color is going to be at a different time according to the index in the animation. So the first animation changes color first, the second one second, right? But then after a certain amount of milliseconds, we want to change it back, and it'll do it in the same order, if you kind of get what I mean. So down here, we'll just do div.style.background color and set it back to the original color, which is 482, and do the same thing for the div2. And let's say that we got to the last item and we change this color back. Once we get to the last item, so if index is equal to array.length -1, then here we can do set items to the sorted array, and that means that we're done basically. Okay, moment of truth. Let's test it out. Nice. I like it. Doesn't have to be purple, could be blue, but I think purple looks cool. It's kind of like original. I've never seen people do it in purple. Let's slow down the delay, and the delay is a minimum of 3, so yeah. Okay, so maybe we can make this a little bit faster actually. So minimum delay and insertion sort, go. Cool. I like it. And we can change the minimum to 1 because, it could be faster. So here minimum is 1, insertion sort, go. Okay, that's a lot better now. But you see, it starts taking a while with big inputs because it's such an inefficient algorithm. And maybe 2 milliseconds per index would be good. So yeah, insertion sort, that's there for you. So let's get into the juicy part now. Merge sort. I bet you're waiting for that one. So we're gonna do something very similar here. Basically, we're gonna do the optimized version of merge sort, the one that uses the helper array to do things. So I hope you know how merge sort works. Basically, you just sort half of the array, sort the other half, and merge, and do that recursively. So until we have, and by definition, an array with only one value in it is already sorted. So when you have an array of 2, you have 2 halves that are sorted, and you can merge them together. And using that same logic, you sort the entire input. So over here, I'm going to create a function. So I'm going to create a file for it called merge sort.ts. And then here, export const get merge sort anims. Okay. So here we would call const new array anim array is equal get merge sort anims, pass in the items in there like that. And we can actually omit this so I cannot get any more errors. And then here we declare that we receive items in its array of numbers. But we need more than that. We need more than just the original array. We need the helper array as well. So up here we can do const auxiliary is equal to, we can just do an empty array here. So passing the auxiliary, and we need the low, which is the starting point, which is 0, and the endpoint, which is items.length -1. Okay, and I always doubt if I'm spelled length right, you know. But here, it's another array. Low is a number, and high is another number. And with that, we can just do merge sort. And what's the problem here? Oh, I need to be more explicit with that one. Okay. So now we can just do merge sort. And now that I think about it, it's going to be really hard to return an animation array if this is going to be a recursive call. It's going to just make things way more complicated. So it's better to just make that one here and just pass it in, and it can be mutated. So anim array is equal to an array. And in here, it's going to be, and let's see, anim array is already defined. I guess these are in the same scope. So I'll just change the name. And then I pass it in here. So it can be mutated. And then here, we accept it as an input. Okay, so now all we need to do is basically implement merge sort and do the animation thing after. We'll test it out and then we add the animations to it. So first thing we're going to do is get the midpoint. So, well, actually that's not true. We need the base case. So the base case is that if low is greater than or equal to high, then that means we've reached a subarray of length 1 or less, and we just want to return because we need to split this problem into subarrays of size 2. So if this is the case, we return. Otherwise, we can do everything else. So const mid, so we need the midpoint, is equal to low plus math.floor high minus low, parentheses in there, divided by 2. So we're just getting the midpoint, and we're doing this so that instead of high plus low divided by 2, we do this so that in case our input is too large, it doesn't do an integer overflow. But that's not going to be a problem, but I'm just used to doing it this way already. So now we just do get merge sort anims, pass in our items, auxiliary array, the array, and then now for low, pass in low, but for high we pass in mid. And then do the same thing here, but for the low is mid plus 1, and the high is just high. And then we do merge. So let's create that function up here. So const merge, and this merge is going to take in our items, our auxiliary array, our animation array, which I can name anim array to make things more obvious. Okay, so this takes in our items, the auxiliary array, our actual array, and remember this items here, we don't want to pass in the actual items, we want to pass in a copy because we don't want to mutate our state in React. That's not okay, doing it just like that. Okay, so items, helper array, animation array, takes in low and mid and high. So we would go here and call merge items, helper, anim array, low, mid, and high. So now up here, we just do the merge. So first of all, we need to copy all the values from our items array into the helper array. And this is actually not necessary for different implementations. There's actually a way you can optimize so you don't have to do that, but that's not in the scope of this video, and I don't want to complicate things even more. So basically, we'll just do a for loop. K equals 0, k is less than, not k equals 0, k equals low, k is less than high, and k plus plus. And then we would do aux of k is equal to items at k. Okay, so now we can do a for loop. So for let k is equal to low until k is greater than or equal to high, and up here is also greater than or equal to. We want to do k plus plus. And then we need 2 pointers. So let I equals low and j equal mid plus 1. So in this for loop, we can do if I is greater than mid, then we do items at k is equal to auxiliary j plus plus. And something similar, so else if j is greater than high, so that means if the right pointer, we finished merging on that side, we want to insert the items that correspond to the I pointer on the left array. Else, so now we've finished the base case, so now we have to compare. So if aux helper array at index I, if that's greater than, if that's less than or equal to the helper array at index j, we're going to want to actually merge using the I pointer. So we do items k is equal to aux I plus plus. And then else, we'll just do for the j. So items k is equal to aux j plus plus. And then from this function, and why am I getting errors? Oh, I forgot to actually declare this. So this is that. This is an array of 2D array. No, not 2D array. This is just a normal array. This is a 2D array. This is a number. This is a number. And this is a number too. Okay. Yeah, we're doing an overriding of index of items, so we're actually mutating the array, so we don't need to return anything here. Yeah, so now let me just do const nums is equal to items, and instead of passing in this, pass in nums, and then we do console log nums. So now we're gonna test out merge sort. Hopefully it works. Go here, merge sort. Yeah, that looks sorted to me. Okay. So yeah, merge sort works. Now comes the actual tricky part, where we need to actually get the animations working. So let me close up these files so I can focus more. Right, so essentially we're not going to be able to do what we did for insertion sort, where we just got the indexes of the arrays we swapped, because in this case we're not doing any swapping, we're just doing overriding. So what we're just going to do is the helper array is not going to be visible to the client. And honestly, that's just going to make it look even more cool than it actually is. So there's no problem with that, I think. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to pass in the height. So the new height of the array paired with the index of the array that we edited. So here, notice how at index k in our array, because k is actually a pointer which corresponds to the index that we're actually overriding in our normal array. So at this index k, we're getting this value aux of j or aux of I or whatever, right? And this value, the value is the height. So what we can do here is do array, and I don't know why I keep calling it array. It should be anim array so it can be more clear. What we can do here is anim array dot push. We'll push an array, obviously. And we're gonna push in, first of all, the new height. So it would be aux k, and then we pass in the new height and the index. So the new height is aux of j, the index is k. Essentially, we do this down here too. So the index or the value is at aux of I. Over here is aux of I as well, and over here is aux of j. So now we're mutating this animation array, and basically that's all we had to do. So now over here, where was I? Over here? No, over here, yeah. Now over here, this array right here, we'll pass it into another function that we're gonna make. So I know it's not good to copy paste, but if you have a better way of doing this, leave it in the comments, and maybe maybe it's better. But for now, for the sake of time, I'm not gonna spend too much time trying to make this the best code in the world. I just want it to work. So this will be called animate merge, and the input is essentially the same thing, except when we loop over this animation array that we passed in, instead of getting the first and second, this will be the new height of this index, or the array that's at this index of items. And by items I mean the new array, right? So this is actually going to be more simple, because all we have to do is get the div that's at this index, change the color, and set the height to the new height, and then uncolor it after. So pretty simple. We can just delete a lot of this stuff here. Anything that says div2 can go out the window. This, don't need that. And then here, we change this to new height. But the problem is that this new height is just going to be a number. So we're going to need to do kind of what we did here, how we divided by 7, so it can be consistent. So divided by 7, and here stick a %sign. So we need to go here, do that, just like that. See? Then here, uncolor it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So then here we just call animate merge, and it takes in the new array, which was nums, and it takes in the animation array, which is R. And I think that's it. So let's try it out. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, this is merge sort. Check it out, check it out, check it out. Let's see. Boom. Look at that beauty. Oh, wow. Look at that sort. I like it, I like it, I like it. Look at that sort, man. I love it. I love seeing a good sort. Look at that. Man, if you made it this far into video, you're such a nerd just like me. This is so cool. But yeah, if you coded along, congrats, because this was a mouthful. This is a lot of stuff we just did in one video. I don't even know how long this video is. It's probably like 2 hours long or something. But yeah, anyways, stay tuned. I'm going to be posting some new stuff. I've been getting into algorithms recently. That's kind of why I made this project. But yeah, let me know in the comments what type of videos you're trying to see. I'm thinking about posting some more like algorithm type stuff videos, but let me know if you're interested in that stuff in the comments, of course. So yeah, it's 12 right now. The beginning of my day, well, not beginning, but kind of midday. I'm gonna head out. But hey, I hope you guys have a good one, and yeah, I'll see you later.